Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Madals. This is Go for SC2 Monday, and we're going into map number 2 of this best of 3 semi-final. King Sejong Station is going to be the map, and to the lower right, we have got the Pink Zerg playing for Vega Squadron, none other than DaNa. And his opponent to the top left, playing for Alien Invasion, it is CPU, the Yellow Protoss. CPU needs to win this map to stay in tonight's tournament to have any shot at advancing to the top. CPU, shout out to Madals for being super handsome. I can't actually reply to that, and this is now kind of awkward. I met CPU at DreamHack, and CPU is awesome. I met lots of people at DreamHack. It was lovely. If you haven't been to DreamHack, I suggest you go. I'm going to try and go to more, hopefully. Depends whether people will fly me out there or not, because it's very expensive getting to DreamHack from England. We're a tiny little island, which means trains don't easily travel into Europe, apart from the Eurostar for any smart people who's sitting there going, well, you could go to France and then you could get a train from there. And it's like, yeah, I could, but I don't have a week to get places. So, anyway, Drone, coming on out. What are you doing, Drone? What is your plan, DaNa? You want to scout, don't you? Not going for a little proxy hatch, although that would make me very happy. Comes on up, sees no gateway, knows it's going to be a Nexus first out of CPU, who's playing this bold. DaNa, on the other hand, goes hatch first. Contrary to what you think might make any sort of practical sense, hatch pull up against a Nexus first isn't ideal. You actually want to go hatch into a gate. And I know that sounds incredibly strange. You're like, but Madals, last game it was hatch pull up against a gate expand. And that worked. Anyway, checking around, pylon coming down, Overlord just coming to get a little check, says, yep, that is definitely a Nexus you're making. Gateway coming up behind this, meanwhile DaNa should be starting up a spawning pool shortly. Or is he actually just, no, he's going to go for a third. Okay, I take everything back. DaNa is far better at this game than I am, and he thinks that going hatch pool up against this is fine, so albeit. Still checking around there, we've got 2 gases being taken by CPU. So he can tech out of this very nicely. We'll wait to see how many probes he puts in there. Down goes the Cybercore, and this is all normal stuff. CPU just come and take a little check up. Gonna see nose or see a very late spawning pool. Know that it's hatch pool from that. It's pretty obvious. You'll just come and check down now. DaNa just transferred one little drone, just in case there was any pylon or anything getting started, but it's very unlikely to be something like that. CPU, I'm just going to check, sees the third base and knows really what he's up against. In terms of how you follow this up, well, 6 probes are in gas, so tech is highly viable from CPU. He's going to have enough gas in the bank to start up a Cybercore, a Stargate, or anything like that. Judging by this positioning of the probe as well, I'm going to go with a proxy Stargate, is what my call is going to be. That is such a cute little gap. Why have I not seen that cute little gap before? I don't know. Can't actually get around here. This is dead space. Bit of a shame. Poor little area around to that side. Never gets any love. Anyway, probe. Waiting down here. Should see a pylon momentarily. Surprised the pylon wasn't actually the last one. One did get started up there. We'll wait and see. Regardless though, Stalker coming out, Warp Gate Tech, and also the Mothership Core already begun. Meanwhile for DaNa, pumping out drones, queens and drones and drones and queens. Because that's what you do when you go hatch pull. You just get as many workers as possible. When you're up against a Nexus first, you know you're completely safe for absolutely ages. One gateway has been seen. DaNa baiting with the idea, shall I just pull back and try and grab this? And he goes, no, better not. A couple of lings down on the ground as well. Could just be a proxy pylon rather than any kind of tech. I think if we were going to see a proxy Stargate, it would have come down already. So looks like nope, CPU just happy to chill here for the moment. DaNa pumping out more and more drones, already up to 32. It's going to be down slightly, and that's because going hatch pull means that you unfortunately miss a couple of injects just because your queens are later due to the later spawning pool, but you obviously catch up remarkably quickly. Roach Warren now on its way down here for DaNa, who is just being very proactive with his overlords, wanting to check around, take a good look at anything that could be on its way. Has managed to get a couple of Zerglings through. That's nice for him. Also spots this pylon. This is massive. Okay, this is a beautiful scout for DaNa, knowing that this is here. His attention really drawn to it by the fact that a Stalker is busy shooting away. Couple of lings forcing a pullback of those probes. Meanwhile, there's a lot of Zerglings actually moving across the map for the moment. The reason being is because these Stalkers are getting warped in across. a long way away from a defense position. There's a gap in the wall off. The Lings may even look to try and engage up against this. I don't think there's enough of them. Speed is about to kick in though. That will help significantly. Only 4 Stalkers there for the time being. Speed, 2 seconds away. With this many Lings, you can't just go for it. These Stalkers are in a big amount of trouble. Will get surrounded for some mass recall. That means that, for the moment at least, you're going to be nice and safe. A lot of Lings out in the field. A counterattack, plausible. There's not enough energy on the Mothership Core in order to vote an overcharge. But 3 sentries were just warped in. And that means that force fields could buy you a lot of time. Lings coming through from all angles. The sentries get caught. This is a problem for CPU. He is going to lose a lot of this. Sentries and Stalkers aren't particularly good up against Speedlings. Down goes all of the army of CPU. A quick check into the third base. DaNa could have actually run into the natural, but decides to go for the definite damage rather than the possible. It's actually pulling back now. Not quite sure what DaNa's doing. DaNa needs to actually engage somewhere. Doesn't really matter too much where. Wants to try and force the cancel on this third. Don't think he's going to be able to with those Zealots warping in and the Mothership Core getting a good amount of work done. Does look to see what else he can do. More Lings just streaming across the map. Dark Shrine from CPU is also on its way. Because of course, when behind you, Dark Shrine. The Lings, once again, getting a good amount of surface area on this third Nexus. Should be able to pick it off now. Force the cancel. No cancel actually came down, so that's 400 minerals worth of damage done to CPU. A couple of Roaches in the mix as well. This is going to significantly help up against those Zealots, and CPU is starting to hurt. The Zealots not trading well up against that. Forge trying to get focused. +1 should be able to finish before it's picked off unless the Roaches start to join in as well. There's the Photon Overcharge. Waste a bit of Mothership Core energy to buy a few more seconds of time. The Roaches though, coming it up. Should be able to pick off that cannon. The Stalkers, with the aid of those Zealots, able to take out those Roaches nice and easily. So CPU, he's taken a fair bit of damage here. DaNa's also lost quite a bit, but behind this, DaNa's just been pumping out drone after drone. Up to 60 workers already. Going to be going up to 68, fully saturating all 3 of his bases. Also pumping out a good more number of Roaches. A few DTs making their way onto the field, but without that proxy pylon, they've got a fair walk across. DaNa, I don't believe, has anything in the way of detection. No Overseers as of yet. Does have a lair, of course, because we know road speed's on its way down. May see DaNa try and come in from behind. CPU does have a bit of vision of these rocks, though. So if he's paying attention, we'll be able to spot that the rocks are getting taken down. Can't see one Roach from the side. The Dark Templar, though, moving on up. There is a Spore Caller. Okay, I take it back. There's one Spore. The Roaches are there as well. The Roaches needs to get pulled back quickly. There we go. Roaches already on their way back. The main base doesn't have a Spore Caller. Overseers are though morphing, so they should be able to deal with most of this. One Dark Templar up into the main base isn't the end of the world for DaNa at the moment. 14 worker kills. Quite substantial. But DaNa able to rapidly resupply those. Already 12 more coming back out. All in all, the Overseer, just the part of this puzzle missing. Not quite sure where it's coming from. There we go. Overseer just creeping along nice and slowly. Dark Templar trying to hide, but DaNa shouldn't fall for any hidden Dark Templar time. Sees it. Pulls the Roaches away, though. Not actually taking down. Just a couple of Roaches waiting for the time being. Third for CPU is now up and running. A lot of Roaches moving across the map, though. We've also got Blink and +2 coming through from CPU, who's getting himself a fair upgrade lead, actually, which is positive for him. Unfortunately, the 4th base is up for DaNa, so that means that DaNa able to stay 1 base up, which of course Zerg players want to do whenever possible. Still though, Roaches just getting a lot of damage down. Nice amount of fire off. Of course, there's a couple of force fields. Gas being focused down, just trying to hurt that income. The best being count for CPU, for not getting too much tech. Going to be going for these gateways as well, hurting production. Not much else really DaNa can do at the moment. Photon Overcharge, just tickling the Roaches a bit. It's mildly irritating. Roaches are actually now moving in. This is a big commitment from DaNa. Has got a lot of reinforcements coming on through, but a huge swell of these Roaches get caught by force fields. They're engaging actually upon the Nexus as opposed to the probes, and I don't think they've got enough damage to be able to take that down. However, with a good concave, DaNa is working down this gateway Gas-centric army quickly. The sentry's taking significant amounts of fire, really hurting that gas count of CPU. A couple of roaches from behind, also trying to pick through this. Tightest concave you've ever seen there. Single file those roaches through that gap. But in sheer volume of numbers, DaNa looks set to take this game now, up 69 to 20 army supply, and just streaming units across. Photon overcharge has subsided. A couple of Dark Templar, maybe the last beacon of hope, and of course, without any detection over here, at least until these overseers get in on it, that buys a bit more time for CPU, who warps in another full squadron of units. These speedlings edging on forward. Sees the Archon. The Roaches may just decide to go for this now, trying to pick away at the Zealots. The Archon taking quite substantial amounts of fire. The Stalkers blinking away. CPU controlling as best he can, but DaNa looking incredibly powerful here. Losing some of this army supply, but is already gearing up for that tech switch. The Spire's coming on through. He's saved up a lot of gas. 5th base on its way. A couple more probes getting picked off. It's 80 workers to 65 at the moment, but that number's going to keep switching. The important thing for DaNa is he's forcing out a lot of Zealots, Immortals. The Stalker count next to non-existent, so the 13 Mutalisks that are on their way through are just going to be devastating. CPU still warping in a couple of sentries, not much else. Meanwhile, DaNa happily mining off of 8 gases, soon to be 10. The point where Mutalisk production just skyrockets. Already, if we take a look at the overall income amounts, we can see that DaNa just saying they're just shy of 1,000 gas per minute. In come the Mutalisks now. They're going to be looking to start harassing about. Double Stargate has started. I'm not quite sure what was... Okay, well, the Stargate's in response to the fact the Mutalisks have definitely now been seen, but I wasn't sure where they've been seen prior to that. Stalker's going to try and go for this. There is already a couple of photon cannons. The Immortals are going to take a lot of damage. One will fall. A couple of Zealots also taking a bit of a beating. Second Immortal should get picked off relatively quickly too. These Mutas trying to trade as best as possible up against the Stalkers. Picking them apart. Pretty much single file. The Sentry's also taking a lot of damage. This is, again, lowering the gas count of the army of CPU. DaNa being very proactive with these speedlings, trying to maintain that map dominance. Mutalisks, though, taking a surprising amount of fire, actually. 9 of them have been taken down. Not being as cost-effective as possible, those Mutas, but looking to just hit them in that surprise window before we see too many Phoenix out on the map, which would really cause them some problems. Following on from this, Hydralisk Den, Infestation Pit. Just a heck of a lot of tech coming down from DaNa. Sitting up on these 5 bases, trying to force a big response out of CPU, and then just always switching it up, preventing CPU from actually gathering a composition that would be effective against the army that he's building next, as opposed to continuing on with what's working for him at the moment. Stalkers blink on up. Phoenix count is looking quite healthy actually, but if we look at the investment into these Phoenix, it's rather substantial when there's not more Mutalisks being produced. Good little turn here is going to allow these Mutalisks to engage up against the Phoenix, and of course the Phoenix only strong up against Mutas because they outrange them. Otherwise, a couple of Lings decimating probe line at the 3rd. We got more Speedlings running in now towards the natural base, looking to just surround a lot of those Stalkers. Big blink away. The Zealots coming on into this as well. The Zealots are 2-0 up against the 1-0 Zerglings, so we'll do a nice bit of work against those. The Mutalisks, I'm not quite sure where they've disappeared off to. They're just having a bit of a party down to the side here. Whereas the Hydras are where the next transition comes. Hydralisks, of course, wreck face. Unless, of course, there's any splash damage, any Colossi or any High Templar. And if we flick over to the Units tab, we can see there aren't any of those. Just Gateway Units and Phoenix, neither of which are going to be effective against large numbers of Ling Hydra forces. DaNa is very, very much ahead in this game. Nearly double the supply of his opponent. CPU needs quite the miracle to still be able to take this game, although while DaNa's playing solid and picking this apart, it's giving opportunity for CPU. In the center of the map, the Hydras have now shown themselves, dishing out a lot of damage there at the 1-0 upgrades as well. They're trying to get the Muscular Augments upgrades, but it's a fair way off. A couple of Archons coming into the mix here as well. But just the sheer Hydra numbers is pretty huge. A lot of lifts coming down, trying to just really reduce the Hydralisk numbers as quickly as possible. But There's still so many of them. The roaches coming on through as well. The Phoenix taking a lot of damage. And with this, CPU down to a nominal amount of units and GG's out. DaNa takes this series 2-0 and will be the first finalist of tonight.